I came home to find my roommate had moved a stranger into our apartment without my knowledge or consent, and that's when the nightmare began. I had always thought of our small apartment as a sanctuary, a place where I could escape the chaos of college life. But now, as I stood in the front doorway, staring at the unfamiliar face of this newcomer, I felt a chill run down my spine. My name is Alex, and I'm a junior at a big state university. I've lived with my two roommates, Matt and Emily, for 2 years now. We've always gotten along pretty well, despite our differences. Matt's a pre-med major, Emily's an art major, and I'm a business major. We've learned to respect each other's space and schedules. But none of that mattered as I gazed at the stranger standing in our living room. He was a tall, lanky guy with messy brown hair and a scruffy beard. He looked like he'd just rolled out of bed and stumbled into our apartment. I felt a surge of unease as he smiled at me, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Hey dude," he said, holding out a hand. "I'm Jake. I'm here to stay for a while." I hesitated, unsure of what to do. Part of me wanted to call campus security and have them remove him from our apartment. But another part of me was curious. Who was this guy, and why had my roommates brought him into our home without telling me? I took a deep breath and shook his hand. "Welcome to our apartment," I said, trying to sound friendly. But as I looked at Jake, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He seemed shifty, like he was hiding something. As the days went by, I noticed more and more strange things about Jake. He would disappear for hours at a time, only to return with a mysterious grin on his face. He would talk to himself in whispers, as if he was having a conversation with someone who wasn't there. And he would often leave strange objects lying around the apartment, like a used syringe or a cryptic note scrawled on a piece of paper. I tried to brush off my concerns, telling myself that I was just being paranoid. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. And when I stumbled upon a cryptic message from my roommates, I knew I had to take action. It was a text message from Matt, sent just hours before. "Don't ask questions, Alex," it read. "Just let Jake be." I felt a cold dread creeping up my spine as I read the message. What were my roommates hiding? And what did they have to do with this creepy stranger who was now living in our apartment? I knew I had to do something. But what? I didn't want to accuse my roommates of anything without solid evidence. But I couldn't just sit back and let Jake continue to wreak havoc on our lives. As I stood there, frozen in indecision, Jake appeared in the doorway behind me. "Hey dude," he said, his eyes glinting with a knowing look. "You're starting to figure things out, aren't you?" I turned to face him, my heart racing with fear. "Figure out what?" I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. But Jake just smiled and shook his head. "You'll find out soon enough," he said, before disappearing into the shadows once again. And with that, my nightmare began. As I dug deeper into the mystery of our uninvited roommate, I stumbled upon a disturbing truth about her past. At first, I thought it was just a strange coincidence, but the more I learned, the more I realized that our roommate's secret was a ticking time bomb, threatening not just her own safety, but ours as well. I remember the day I discovered a cryptic message on her phone, a conversation with an unknown number that sent shivers down my spine. The words were hushed, but the tone was unmistakable, a mixture of fear and desperation. I tried to brush it off as a harmless conversation, but the more I thought about it, the more I became convinced that something was off. It started with small things. I'd catch her staring at the wall, her eyes fixed on a spot that seemed to hold a secret. I'd see her scribbling notes in the dead of night, the words erased before I could even get a glimpse. And then, there were the strange noises. Creaks and groans that seemed to come from nowhere, making me wonder if our apartment was haunted. As I pieced together the fragments of our roommate's past, I realized that she was hiding a dark secret. A secret that had left her shaken, and one that now threatened to destroy our fragile lives. I couldn't shake the feeling that we were living in a nightmare, one from which we might never awaken. But what was this secret, and why was our roommate so desperate to keep it hidden? I knew I had to dig deeper, to uncover the truth before it was too late. And so, I began to investigate, scouring the internet for any clues that might lead me to the truth. It was then that I stumbled upon an old news article, one that sent a chill down my spine. A local girl had gone missing, one who bore an uncanny resemblance to our roommate. The article mentioned a mysterious figure, one who had been seen lurking around the area before her disappearance. And then, there was the name, a name that sent a shiver down my spine. Jameson, I whispered, the name echoing in my mind like a mantra. Who was this Jameson, and what did he have to do with our roommate's secret? I knew I had to find out, to uncover the truth before it was too late. As I delved deeper into the mystery, I began to feel a sense of unease. It was as if I was walking on thin ice, one misstep away from disaster. But I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close to the truth. I had to keep pushing forward, no matter the cost. And then, just as I thought I was getting close to the truth, I received a mysterious message. A message that seemed to come from nowhere, one that sent a chill down my spine. You're getting close, it read. But are you ready for the truth? I felt a sense of trepidation, one that seemed to paralyze me. What did this message mean, and who was behind it? I knew I had to be careful, to tread carefully as I navigated this treacherous landscape. But I also knew that I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. And so, I took a deep breath and continued my investigation. I knew that I was taking a risk, one that might cost me dearly. But I also knew that I had to see this through, to uncover the truth no matter what. As I continued to dig, I began to feel a sense of unease. It was as if I was being watched, one that seemed to follow me everywhere I went. I knew I had to be careful, to keep my wits about me as I navigated this treacherous landscape. But I also knew that I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. And then, just as I thought I was getting close to the truth, I received another message. A message that seemed to come from nowhere, one that sent a chill down my spine. You're getting close, it read. But are you ready for the truth? I felt a sense of trepidation, one that seemed to paralyze me. What did this message mean, and who was behind it? I knew I had to be careful, to tread carefully as I navigated this treacherous landscape. But I also knew that I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. As I continued to investigate, I began to feel a sense of unease. It was as if I was being watched, one that seemed to follow me everywhere I went. I knew I had to be careful, to keep my wits about me as I navigated this treacherous landscape. But I also knew that I couldn't turn back now, not when I was so close to uncovering the truth. And then, just as I thought I was getting close to the truth, I stumbled upon a shocking revelation. A revelation that seemed to shatter everything I thought I knew about our roommate's secret. But I knew I had to keep pushing forward, to uncover the truth no matter what. The truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered. And I was determined to find it, no matter the cost. As I stepped into the apartment, my eyes locked onto the stranger sitting on the couch. My roommate's new friend, or so I thought. I had been trying to process the situation since I found out she had moved them in without my knowledge or consent. But the more I looked at this person, the more I couldn't shake off the feeling that something wasn't quite right. At first, I tried to brush it off as mere paranoia. Maybe I was just being overly cautious. But the more I interacted with this stranger, the more I sensed a growing unease. It started with small things, the way they would smile a little too widely, the way they would glance around the room as if checking for something. But it was more than just a feeling. It was a nagging sense that this person was hiding something. I decided to try and get more information about this stranger. I turned to my roommate, who was busy in the kitchen, and asked her about this person. She hesitated, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of guilt in her eyes. But then, she brushed it off, saying that they were just a friend from work, that they were a nice person, and I should get to know them better. But I wasn't buying it. I asked her more questions, trying to get to the bottom of things. But the more I pressed, the more evasive she became. It was as if she was hiding something, and I was starting to get worried. What was going on? What was this person's secret? As I continued to observe the stranger, I started to notice more and more strange behaviors. They would receive mysterious phone calls, and then quickly hang up. They would glance around the room, as if checking for something or someone. And then, there were the late-night conversations, huddled in the corner of the room, speaking in hushed tones. I was starting to feel like I was trapped in a bad horror movie. Every move I made seemed to be watched by this stranger, and I couldn't shake off the feeling that they were waiting for something to happen. But what? I tried to push the thoughts out of my head, telling myself that I was being paranoid. But deep down, I knew that something was off. And then, it hit me, a memory from a news article I had read a few months ago. A woman who had been accused of being a serial killer had been living in our neighborhood. And then, I saw it, a small tattoo on the stranger's wrist, the same tattoo that had been featured in the article. My heart sank as I realized the truth. This stranger was the woman from the article. And I had a feeling that my roommate knew more about her than she was letting on. The room seemed to spin around me as I processed the information. What had I just stumbled into? And what did it have to do with my roommate's dark secret? As the situation spiraled out of control, I began to question my own sanity. Was I paranoid, or was something truly sinister going on? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was trapped in some sort of surreal nightmare. Every creak of the floorboards, every faint whisper in the dead of night, made me jump. It was as if I was living in a perpetual state of high alert, waiting for the other shoe to drop. At first, it was just little things. Doors would slam shut on their own, and I'd catch glimpses of movement out of the corner of my eye. I'd turn to see nothing, but the sensation of being watched lingered. My roommates seemed oblivious to it all, but I couldn't help feeling like I was going crazy. They'd smile and laugh together, completely carefree, while I was stuck in this never-ending cycle of fear and anxiety. But it wasn't just the strange occurrences that were getting to me. It was the way my roommates seemed to be hiding something from me. They'd whisper to each other in hushed tones, their eyes darting towards me as if they were worried I'd overhear. I'd try to listen in, but they'd quickly change the subject or pretend like nothing was going on. It was like they were playing some kind of twisted game of cat and mouse, and I was the only one who didn't know the rules. I started to feel like I was losing my grip on reality. Every day was a struggle to keep up with the constant barrage of strange events and unexplained occurrences. I'd find myself questioning my own memories, wondering if I was misremembering things or if something more sinister was at play. It was a desperate, clawing feeling, like I was trying to grasp at a handful of sand. The harder I squeezed, the more it slipped through my fingers. And then, just when I thought things couldn't get any weirder, I stumbled upon a shocking discovery. A cryptic message scrawled on the bathroom mirror, in writing I didn't recognize. It read, "They're not what you think." My heart racing, I spun around to face my roommates, but they were just standing there, smiling at me like they knew a secret I didn't. It was then that I realized the truth. I was trapped in a living nightmare, and I had no idea how to wake up. The question was I alone in this madness, or was I just one of many pawns in a much larger game? As I stood face to face with my roommate and the stranger, my heart was pounding in my chest like a jackhammer. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel the weight of the situation crushing me. I had to confront the darkness head-on, and it changed me forever. In that moment, all the fear, anxiety, and uncertainty I'd been feeling since they moved in boiled over, and I demanded answers. "You," I said, my voice shaking with anger and desperation. "You and your friend, what are you doing here? What do you want from me?" The stranger's expression remained eerily calm, but I could sense a glimmer of fear beneath the surface. My roommate, on the other hand, looked like she'd been caught red-handed, her eyes darting back and forth between us like a trapped animal. The stranger began to speak, their voice low and measured, but I cut them off mid-sentence. No. I don't want to know what you're saying. I just want to know why you're here." My roommate finally found her voice, and it was barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt you. I just needed a place to stay, and I didn't think it would be a problem." "A problem?" "A problem was when the electricity bill went unpaid, or when the sink clogged. A problem was when the trash didn't get taken out on time. But this was a whole different level of problem. This was a nightmare I couldn't wake up from, a horror show that I couldn't escape." And as I looked at my roommate, I saw a stranger staring back at me, a person I no longer recognized. The confrontation was over in an instant, but the aftermath lingered for weeks, maybe even months. It was a slow-burning fire that left me scarred, both emotionally and psychologically. But as I look back on that moment, I realized that it changed me forever. It made me stronger, more resilient, and more determined to protect myself and my space. And that's why I want to share this story with you. I want you to know that you're not alone in your roommate horror stories. There are others out there who have experienced the same fear, the same anxiety, and the same trauma. And I want to hear from you. Share your own stories, your own struggles, and your own triumphs. Let's create a community that supports and empowers each other.